Hey guys, welcome back to Honey in the Rock, episode 66. I'm Sophie, and today I'm here with Jenna, and she is a part of Isaiah117 House. So she's going to be telling us a little bit about her testimony and then what they do there, and as they take care of their kids that come stay with them. So, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to learn more. So, what is your testimony?
My testimony would be that I grew up in the church.
Mhm.
I've always loved the Lord
Yep.
and kind of sought to do what I felt He had for me.
Yeah.
But I think in doing that for a lot of my life, it was to do what others thought was right and to make sure I looked good and I was a good Christian.
Right.
I think it wasn't until adulthood and when I started into my husband and I's journey of foster care that I truly learned the love that God had for me, but also the growth that I needed to do and just what it actually meant to be a Christian and to live outside of what I could control and what I wanted to happen and live in this space where like He's in control and He is the author of my story.
That's good. I love how a lot of testimonies end up like starting like, oh, I grew up in church and this, but how that's not a testimony God can't use. And God can't use that story because like I grew up in church, but eventually, you have an eye-opening thing of like, oh, I need to take God seriously.
Yeah.
So I love that. I'm excited to hear more about your story as we go in. But will you tell a little bit about what Isaiah117 House is, what that even means?
Yeah, so the Isaiah117 House exists for kiddos entering foster care. So most people know that there's a foster care system and that kids come into care if there's physical or some sort of need in their family. Maybe it's abuse of some sort or neglect. A lot of people don't realize that when a child enters foster care, that across the entire nation, really the plan is for them to go to a DSS office. So that's, if you've never been to a DSS office, it's similar to like a DMV, state issued furniture, like super bland.
Not welcoming.
Not at home, like not somewhere you'd want to go on like your worst, hardest day. And so when we kind of found that out and when our founder Rhonda happened upon that, like she learned that a 7-year-old girl slept on the floor of that office. It hit her like a ton of bricks. And so we exist so that the child entering care can come into a home. So we have a home just like you and I live in, where we invite the caseworker when they make that removal to come out to the house to work from an office in this home. We bring volunteers in to love on the kid, to get them, a lot of times kids enter care with a trash bag of their belongings. So we pack them a bag. We our mantra kind of is that we want to lavishly love these kids. So we try to provide not only their needs, but like there are kids that like don't think they're worthy of even asking for a book they really desire or a pair of shoes. And so we try to find those things out and get them what they actually want and show Christ's love in that way. But as a whole, our mission is kind of 3-part. So we want to reduce trauma for the kids entering care. We want to partner with the caseworkers because we know they're doing a super hard job. And then we want to love on the family, whoever's saying yes to that child, whether it be a foster placement or a grandma. We know that is hard. A hard part of this journey is when you say yes and it's maybe 1 a.m. and you have none of the stuff you need. And so we will help get them what they need when they're saying yes.
That's really cool. So it's kind of like the middle ground from when the child might have to get removed to where they're going to get this.
Okay. Because they don't have a placement right away.
Right. And it takes time. Okay. Yeah. That's so cool. And like important work that seems so small, but it's actually such a big deal. And like just having the kids like being shown love, even through just like
and the caseworkers,
So
there are caseworkers that literally cry over a cup of coffee or a pack of gum that we give them because they do a really hard job and it's thankless and they're the bad guy for the birth family and a lot of times the system is pretty hard to work with, so the foster parents are struggling with them. So it's just a really tough place to be, really and so like wrapping arms around them and letting them feel love and I don't know, just showing that Christ's love isn't this like far off thing we talk about that someone could experience someday if you're in the right church. Like it's right here, right now with a cup of coffee.
Yes, that's so good. And what's the meaning behind the name?
So Isaiah 117 is a Bible verse. It is the verse that talks about doing good and seeking justice, care for the orphan and widow. But the reason we picked that and it came from was not just that verse, right? So if you look above that, it's God talking to his people, saying like, all that you're doing isn't what I want from you. Like you're sacrificing, you're doing all these festivals, you're like trying to be the good Christian, right? And do the things that you think I want from you. But what I actually want you to do is like care for people, and love them, and stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves.
Be the hands and feet of Jesus there. That's really cool. And I think what tends to happen sometimes even in the Christian community, but also the people outside, they pick verses, and pick apart verses. And if you might say, oh, this tiny part of this verse might say this, but what does the whole story say? And so it's actually really cool that the verse that says like take care of the fatherless, the orphan and all these things. But then even around it is, also goes with what Isaiah 117 House even stands for. So that's so cool. How did you get involved?
So about 8.5 years ago, my husband and I stepped out of our journey. Like we had been married for a while and thought we'd have kids biologically, and it didn't happen that way. And so I was praying, what do you have for us, Lord? And in some research, like I had only ever known about like international adoption. So I had friends that were adopted internationally. And so I'm a planner. and in my perfect world and what I thought was going to be my life, I was going to get married and have kids. And then when I was older, I was going to adopt a child from Korea. And so that was just kind of adoption in that part was always on my heart. But I didn't know about foster care. Like I had no clue. And so as the years kind of went on and I started going to the computer and looking up, I became aware of foster care and started that journey. And living in it with the kiddos that we have has been challenging. To hear kids' stories and to know what they're experiencing. And especially like as they've gotten older, and as we've taken older placements, to hear them talk about removal day was just disheartening that like we have so much and like we can step into that. And so as we kind of fostered, we actually have 9 kiddos. 7 of them are adopted from foster care and 2 are current foster placements. But our house is full. And so we knew like our journey in foster care, being foster parents, was coming to an end. And that's when I learned about the Isaiah 117 House. And so I was like, we need this here. And my kids are like, we need this here. And so they're super pumped because their story would have been different if they could have had this.
Goodness, that's so cool. Oh man, that's awesome. And then just like being able to be involved again, because like how many you can't.
I know this world. Like I can't walk away from it.
That's what I was trying to say. That took me a minute to process. But you can't walk away from it, so it's really cool that you can, be involved as well. Okay. So what does kind of a day-to-day look like?
So right now in our Greenville location, we do not have land or a house yet. So we've kind of spread the word for a season, and then we had a huge fundraiser in October. It was our first one, and we were blown away. Like God, like $280,000 in one day. So moving forward, like we're like, okay, Lord, show us where the land or the house will be. So we're kind of pursuing that. Still just taking the time to really good talk to anybody, like come on to the news and podcasts and go out to churches and Sunday school groups and Girl Scouts and really anyone who will let us kind of talk about what we're doing. And like we really have no ask when we go out. We want to go out to share the story because what we realize is it isn't that people don't care. There's like no one yet that I've shared the story and they're like, yeah, it's cool. 7-year-old search sleep on the ground, in an office. Like everyone's like, that's terrible. Like that's really what's happening, and I can do something, right? And so everybody's something is different, and that is what I loved about this when I got involved. Is not everybody is called to be a foster parent, and I was realistic in that. And so when people would talk to me before I knew about this organization, I felt like kind of between a rock and a hard spot, like. maybe they're called, maybe they're not. I don't want to push it. I don't, you know. But like this is the thing, right? Anyone who's like, oh, you're so great. I wish I, and I'm like, first off, I'm not great. Ask my kids. They know better. I'm just working with what I have every day and asking God for help.
Yes.
But everybody can do something.
Right.
And so maybe your something is being a foster parent.
Right.
Maybe it is mentoring a child. Maybe it is providing cookies.
Right.
Or mowing a lawn. Like there's just something everyone can do.
It's like a practical side of that, which is really cool. And with it going out and talking and like kind of spreading the word is kind of cool. It might even like the more people that hear about it, it might tug their heart like, wait, I actually have extra land that I can sell to them for a price where they can start building on. Even like little things like that where it's like somebody's waiting for the sound and then they hear it and like obviously people want to help. Yeah. And I mean, I had one of my really good friends growing up was foster family, and I would be at sleepovers, and they would get a call at 9 o'clock, and an hour and a half later, a little kid would be at their house. And it was such a cool thing to experience because we would just love on that kid, play with them. They couldn't sleep. That's okay. We would lay with them, you know. And it was just eye-opening to see them come in with their little bag. But it's also, you know, cool what y'all are doing now that I even think about it. It's like, oh, wait. It doesn't have to be this. So like 9 p.m. And so that is like kind of the thing that I love about this too, being a foster parent and saying yes to a kid. Like there are kids I failed. Right. Having a child come into your home, like they know nothing about you, anyone in your home, your pets. They come in and they're scared. Right. And they're nervous and they're like all of the things you would think you would feel, they feel. Right. But they put on a happy face and just kind of roll with the punches. But I could have sat with those kids, right? I could have sat there and said, like, what do you need and how are you feeling? But a lot of times as a foster family and at 1 a.m., like instead I'm like, I have to get to Walmart. They need underwear. What about this for school tomorrow? What about this? Like, and so like this sitting with them beyond like, hey, hi, my name is Jenna, you know, and welcome and you can have anything, you know, like those basic things. It was like, get to work on figuring out what to do. Right. Whereas when they can enter through an Isaiah house and they have all the things they need, and then we invite that foster family when they say yes, like if they're able to come to this home and meet the child, play a game while we pack up your car and give you a freezer meal so that that day can truly be like about the kid. That's so cool. Yeah. Okay, so how do you guys keep Jesus at the center of it all, even in your own personal life as the foster mom, or even at that Isaiah house? Yeah, I think that for me, it's remembering that we can't do this. Right. Because I'm a planner. Yes. And if I can put the right things in place, then we'll get there. Right. We'll have a house if I can just talk to the right person. Yeah. And so for the first 6 months of this journey of telling people about it, I was having so much coffee. Yep. And felt like I was spinning my wheels. Right. But really felt like nothing was coming of it. Right. And so I'm like, well, God, it's because you picked the wrong person. I can't do this. I don't public speak. I don't do this. I don't do that. Right. And then like, well, it's because I'm not talking to the right person. So I need to, and so like stepping back from that, like he has allowed me to see that like, it's not about me. It's not about any one person that I'm going to reach. It's about me just waking up every day and saying yes. That's so like good. I'm going to do yes today on the phone call you put me on, on the child that's sitting at DSS that needs shoes. Like I'm going to, like that might feel like I'm doing nothing, but I'm going to go do whatever that thing is for the day. And truly, like we have been blown away by the amount of support and people that like rally around when we're focused on the right things. Right. Like God will bring the people. God, yes, he does provide. Even like in a completely different season of like I'm figuring out what to do with college. Yes. And just learning like one yes at a time. Yeah. And like he's gonna provide. Yeah. And learning that trust, like it's easier, such a control. Like I need everything in control. I need it to be on my to-do list. Because he's not gonna be like, you need to go to this college. Yes. And I'm like, oh God. And so it feels like we need to make the plan. Or he's not going to. But so it's just interesting to see how God can be almost teaching the same lesson in completely different ways. Yeah. Like, actually, stop trying to run the show. Right. Just
my plan's better than yours.
Yes. And I'm like, I know,
but you're not telling me anything right now.
Yes, yes. Okay. So lastly, how can my listeners be praying for y'all?
Yeah, so obviously praying every day for us and with us.
Yeah.
We are searching out land and a house.
Right.
Land and or a house. Like
Right.
we really do kind of have hands wide open for whatever the community brings. And sometimes that is someone saying, hey, I have land I want to give you. I have a house I want to give you. Other times it's like, hey, we're selling this.
Right.
Other times it's a house that we just go out and buy outright.
Right.
So praying that God would open the right doors and that like I would feel clear direction when there's like options that this is what God wants.
Right. Yeah.
But also joining us right now, like there are kids sitting in the office right now.
Right.
And although they're not experiencing an Isaiah117 house, what I know, and I know what you know, is God is bigger than us.
Right.
And so while we want them to have that experience of a home, God can meet them today right where they are, even without this home. And so praying over the kids sitting there and waiting, and the kids in foster care, and just it's a really hard journey to live in. We don't like to live in the unknown, and they live in the unknown day to day for years and years, and it is challenging.
Yes, I'll definitely be praying for that, and I know my listeners are very good prayer warriors as well. And then there's a book that the founder wrote, correct?
Yes.
It's called He's Inviting Us In. Okay. So if you guys want to check that out, and then I'll make sure I link the Instagram and the website I'll attempt to do it in the bios. So if you guys want to check it out there, I will put that there. So thank you for coming on and sharing about this.
Thank you so much.
It's been so cool to learn. I feel like I keep losing my train of thought because I'm just like, oh, whoa. Like in my head the whole time, I'm like, that's so good. I didn't even think about that. That's so smart. That's so needed. Just in like my small experience of just watching other people foster and adopt and just seeing these like, it's like, I can't imagine having to do that, but just this practical way of being the hands and feet of Jesus. So thank you for what you do and how the Lord's letting the Lord use you and saying yes. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.